Welcome back, everybody. This is thejonnymar, and I am continuing with Final Fantasy III for the PSP. So in my last episode, we did some side questing, and in this episode, we are going to deal with that threat that we were informed about, that the people of Tokkul are being basically threatened by the soldiers of Argus, that they're going to burn their town down. So we've come back here to Tokkul in order to save them all. So let's see what happens. Oh no! We can't move. We were hit with, I don't know, magic? Science? A flashbang? A paralyzed spell? Whatever it was, we got captured. They're gonna take us to Castle Hein. And apparently we're gonna be made slaves. So we got some pretty awesome music here. It reminds me of Go-Go's music from Final Fantasy VI. And there's another song too that I can't quite put my finger on. I want to say maybe in Final Fantasy IX? But anyway, we have been captured. We are currently in a cell. They're going to make us slaves, yet the folly of most people when they capture characters in early games, they did not take our equipment. So we have all of our equipment still, and our magic. So we have to figure out what to do here. The other kind of weird thing about this is all of the cells are connected. So we learn a little bit more about Hein, and I'm going to assume that that king-looking guy up there is the king. But Hein was the royal mage of Argus, and basically he overtook the kingdom. He enslaved the king and all of the soldiers. He put a spell on the army and essentially the military, and he's been using them for his own nefarious means. And we've seen the outcome of that, right? The effect on Tokkul, for example. And apparently the king is sick, maybe? He's coughing a lot. Yeah, of course, it's our job, right? You can't do it. You're old. And you're a king. Kings don't do stuff, they just tell people to do stuff in RPGs. Alright, so a couple more soldiers here to talk to before we head out. This cell, for whatever reason, does not have a door on it. So Hein was corrupted by the darkness, just like the Jinn. And this guy is like, you must die! So he is a character that has been taken over by Hein. So we're gonna kill him very quickly. This demon character. Pretty cool sprite here on the enemy model. They have about, I want to say 600 HP, maybe a little bit more. Shouldn't take too long to kill. One round should be enough. Some of the enemies in this area do not have any sort of elemental weakness, but the ones that do are weak to lightning attacks. So you do want to use your lightning staffs. So to get out of here, there's nothing to the left here, but we have to go into this final cell area. And our good friend, you're going to notice over here in the corner, is a little hole. So this game should be pretty evident by now, loves to force us to use the spells Mini and Toad. So we've used Toad twice, and now this will be the second time we've had to use Mini. So we have a healing jar here, which is good. If you want to do some level grinding here in the castle before you take on the boss, you can do so. And then if you, for whatever reason, sold off all of your mini spells, the game, of course, will still give you one. But we haven't. We still have our mini spell. Because I knew about this, of course, and so I wanted to be prepared for it. So, fortunately, similar to Toad, we do not have to stay in mini for the entire castle. We just have to do it long enough to get through the hole. And then once we get to the other side, we will change back to our normal selves. So we are ready to go. Now the enemies in this area are a little bit more difficult than what we faced before in, for example, the Molten Cave. They're not super difficult though. The most annoying thing about this area is that it is pretty branchy, and a lot of the branches are... Oh, sorry, I guess that was a pun, since it's a living tree. I didn't even know that. Anyway, a lot of the paths to the side are dead ends. Now the battles are pretty much the same sorts of things we've been doing in the past. We're going to do physical attacks with our 2 melee classes, and then we're going to use our staves with our wizards. And the encounter rate is high. But we are almost through the first part of this area. There's quite a few chests to pick up as well. A lot of them actually do have Phoenix Downs, so we do want to make sure we're grabbing them all, simply to increase our stock of those particular items. Because as a final reminder, well, probably not a final reminder, but another reminder, you cannot buy Phoenix Downs in this game. So you want to make sure you get as many as you can throughout your adventure. So what's interesting is that the game, again, is trying to give you a little hint here. So you'll notice you're getting some attack items from the chests. So we have these 3 rooms, and in each room, you're going to find 2 chests. One chest has gold, and the other chest has a elemental attack item. So you're going to get a fire one, an ice one, and a lightning one. And that is, again, a little subtle hint as to what you're going to be doing with the boss. Now the boss, as you might expect, is Hein. He is the one that's causing all of this misery in this particular area. And the thing we're going to do with Hein, because Hein is a sneaky guy, he puts up... Oh man, this enemy. So this enemy has a lot of HP and just has a pretty cool character model. Kind of that headless horseman look. They're not going to last very long though. But I thought I'd show it off, just so you could see the character model. But as we've learned previously from the fairies in the Living Woods, as well as some of the soldiers in the area, Hein can shift his elemental barrier. So he's a wizard, and he's going to put up a barrier that resists any sort of magic except a very particular spell. Now the caveat to that and the trade-off is that he is incredibly weak to that spell, whatever the spell is that is the weakness of his barrier. So you need to figure out what the barrier is. We found the royal sword here that the king said that he lost, so we'll throw that on Ingus, our knight here. So there are 2 ways to do that. You can use a white magic spell, which will allow you to figure out what the weakness is. Or, more easily, you can change one of your characters to the Scholar class. Now, the Scholar class has a couple of purposes in the upcoming fight. That makes it a better choice than just keeping one of your characters as a white mage necessarily. Although we are going to keep one of our characters as a white mage because Hein can hit pretty hard. So we're actually going to change Arc to the Scholar class. But what the Scholar does is essentially their special ability is the Study command. Gives you the weakness of any particular enemy that you've encountered. It also will give you the hit points of an enemy if you've faced it previously. An added effect of using the Study ability is that it actually will get rid of any positive effects that they may have on themselves, like Protect or Shell. So that's good. So we're actually going to change Arc over here to the Scholar class. We want to keep our white mage for healing purposes. And what's nice is the Scholar can actually use level 1 magic as well, so we're going to put the Cure spell on them too, just in case. And our knight can also use level 1 white magic. So we're going to have Cure on Ingus as well. And that's just for backup. Now the other thing the Scholar can do is when you use items in battle with the Scholar, they actually are super effective. They do twice as much effect as they would normally. So if you use a healing item, it'll heal twice as much. And if you use an attack item, it'll damage twice as much. So once we figure out what Hein's weakness is, we're going to use our super powerful elemental attack items here on him. Hopefully either a fire or an ice spell. If it's lightning, that's going to get a little dicier. But we're then going to follow it up also with the rest of our characters using attack items as well. And because the Scholar is so powerful, and also because Hein is so weak, we might actually be able to beat him with 1 or 2 items. But here's Hein. He feels pretty proud of himself. He's gonna rule the world. We don't think so. We're gonna stop you, skeleton boy. Time for you to die. Pretty cool model. And he's holding up his cape a la, a barrier, right? So that, again, visual cue here, or clue that he is doing something. Now, the first round, you can't really do anything, because he hasn't yet enacted his barrier. So if you try anything at this point, it's not going to do much effect. So we're just going to wait. We're going to defend with Ingus, and we're going to defend pretty much with everyone else. So once we know what his weakness is, then we can attack. So see, no weak points detected, because he hasn't yet put up the barrier. Okay, so now the barrier's up, now we can figure out what it is. So now we're going to try to steal. Not sure it's going to work. And then we'll, once again, use study to figure out what his weakness is, and then we will use attack items. And our knights should hopefully protect our other characters if Hein gets in a critical attack. Now, this is really the only time we're going to use the Scholar. Oh, please don't put him to sleep. Oh, no. Well, that's nice. Put him to sleep and then hit him immediately to wake him up. So he is weak to fire. That is good, because we have lots of fire items. So although we're not going to use the Scholar a ton in this playthrough, the Scholar, because of their ability to use items and have double effectiveness, that actually makes them very important in the speedrun of this game, specifically the DS version, where there's actually an item duplication glitch that allows you to get a lot more of those items, and then you can just spam them over and over and over again with Scholar. So you turn all of your characters, or most of your characters, into the Scholar class, and you just keep using those attacks to get through enemies really fast. But let's see here. Boom! Almost 5,000 damage. Hein has about 4,500 HP. So do not mess with the Scholar when you have elemental weakness and we have the highest level spell of that element. So Hein is defeated. And happy music. Something's talking to us. Well, keep in mind we're inside the living tree, the elder tree. I like how they're like, the walls are speaking and then they look up at the ceiling. So Hein cursed the elder tree, but we have killed Hein and broken the curse. So now they are free to do what they need to do, which is essentially go back to the living woods. But it also releases the curse on all of the soldiers. So now Argus can actually get back to doing what it's supposed to do, which is, I don't know, kingdom stuff. But one final point, because of the Scholar and kind of some of the nuances of this game is actually super popular in Japan. And there are a lot of Japanese runners for the speedrun of this game. More so the NES version, the Famicom version, than the DS or the PSP version. But it's so popular, and so many people still play it today, that when they released the NES Mini, the Famicom Mini in Japan, they did not include Final Fantasy I like they did on the version that we got here in America, but rather they included Final Fantasy III. So that's interesting, right? They skipped 1 and 2 and they included 3. But we get our second Fang, the Fang of Wind. So hopefully at some point that'll be relevant. The last thing we find out from the fairies in the living tree is that the tree has been wounded, the earth has been wounded, the tree needs some time to recover, and they're gonna sleep for about 1,000 years. So they're going to kick everybody out, not let anyone into this forest, sleep for a while. And then they're going to tell us a little bit more about the prophecy. The idea that this floating continent, again, came around about the same time that they did. Darkness came, overtook the surface world, the world below the floating continent. And now it's our job to figure out a way how to get to that surface, to see if we can stop the darkness. So the tree is telling us we have to leave the floating continent. So we'll have to figure that out, right? We'll have to find a way to get off of this floating continent that isn't just jumping. I know in RPGs you usually can jump from any height and be fine, but we'll have to figure out a different way. So that'll be our task for our next episode. So as always, viewers, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you all next time when we try to figure out a way off the floating continent. So long.